You guys good? All right. Yeah, just starting it off. Man, it felt really good to be back out there. You know, that was probably one of the longest off seasons that we've had, that I've ever had, that these kids have probably ever had. Because based off of recruiting, getting bumped back, and really that snowstorm that hit, and we had some damage to the building. We just decided to bump everything back after spring break, and start it all up. So we got a long trek ahead of us right now. We got 5 weeks of really Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday practices, and we'll go on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and our off days and lifts. So it's going to be a pretty good grind for these kids, man. But I think after that off season, of really just 8 weeks of strength and conditioning, I think everybody was ready for that spring break, and it was just pretty good to get everybody out there today and run around, and some new faces are out there, some new schemes that we're kind of messing around with, and overall it was a pretty productive first day. Everybody's excited for the first day. You try to calm them down as much as you can, because you can only be in helmets, and you got helmets again on Thursday. So hopefully we can just get through these next 2 practices and get the pads on Saturday and kind of get after it a little bit. But have some new additions that I haven't had an opportunity to really talk about. You've got, with the offensive line, we've got Liam and Fletcher, two guys. Liam Dobson comes from Maine, who is going to add a lot of depth. He was an FCS All-American. You guys already know probably a lot about him, but it's good seeing him out there. His belly just hanging out and just running around as best as he can. So it's just good. I think with this off season, kind of just going back to that real quick, I'll get to these newcomers, but I think that if you look at our team, we've put on a lot of weight, a lot of gains. We're a lot bigger than what we've had, and I think Coach Damon, our strength staff, did a really good job throughout those 8 weeks with the nutrition plan, with the weight gain guys. All of our tight ends are up to really 250 plus, and and they're carrying it pretty well, And then you talk about the O-line; they just look really good in general. And Liam was a guy that we put on a weight loss program. Yeah, because he's just so big, and he's bought into it. He does extra, and I'm telling you, he's moving around pretty good right now for day one. I was really impressed with him, And then you got Charles Fletcher, who came from North Carolina State, who's a center. It's good to see him in the mix of it too. Just a veteran guy. With losing Reese Jordan, that brings some depth to that position. We're moving a lot of guys in and out at that O-line spot. Just to see where we're at. You got Russell Baker playing center at times. You got Silas Robinson playing center. You forget about Silas, to be honest with you, because now he's eligible to play. He had to sit out last year, and he's excited to actually get out there and play, because he's been sitting out for a while now. So, but those are the 2 additions for the offensive line. Quarterbacks, we brought in Ty Evans from North Carolina State as well. He was one of the top quarterbacks in his class, an Elite 11 kid in the 2019 class. It's real. What's been interesting about this transfer portal, there's 3 types of freshmen that you have now, and there's going to be a lot of roster issues moving forward. But if you think about it, we have 15 available scholarship spots right now, and you bring these kids, you bring in true freshmen out of high school. They got 5 years to play for, and then you look at last year, and last year didn't count, so those freshmen have 5 years to play for, and then you go to the kids like Dalton Cooper and Calvin Hill, who've been in college for 2 years. They have 4 years of eligibility still, so they're freshmen. So there's, when you looked at our roster, we were a little over 70% of freshmen and sophomores, and probably one of the younger teams in the country. So we've been kind of picky with how we're choosing our recruiting plan. And Ty is a guy that's been in college for 2 years, and he has 4 years of eligibility, so he's considered a freshman quarterback. So it's a unique situation for everybody, but glad to have him here. Great kid. Really kind of bought in. The kids like him. He's going to really elevate that competition in that room. Last year, due to COVID, having the kind of carousel of quarterbacks throughout the first of the year, and really throughout the whole year, he had Ty into that mix. That it's going to be a healthy competition for everybody. So you got them. Going on to the defensive side, we got 3 DBs in with DC Williams, Troy Leffridge, and Eric Sutton. And DC comes from Vanderbilt, a Miami kid, and he's pretty athletic for the first glance. Out there, what we're doing with defense, we're doing a lot of different things out there, putting kids in situations to see if they're capable of doing it. So we're doing a lot of bump press man right now to see who can guard who, and DC's, I turned my head a couple times, looking at him today. But yeah, and Eric Sutton from SMU. We need some experience in that back end, and Eric, played at SMU, played, for a lot of years, and he's going to bring great depth, and we're playing him at corner and nickel and all over the place. So really like his athletic ability right now as well. And then Troy Leffers, Troy's still going through a shoulder issue surgery that he had that we knew about when we signed him. So he's out running around yet, but we're just not putting him in any contact stuff. But he's you bring some experience, some older guys into that room right now. So I really like where those DBs are. And then you got 2 D linemen with Nick McCann and Deontay Washington, who Nick is a Texas Tech transfer. Played for Zach at Texas Tech. I'm saying he's had sacks in Big 12 games, and he's a big force. He's a big 330-pound kid right now, so he's going to be a pretty good anchor. The one that Deontay, he's a pretty interesting kid as well. He looks the part. I'm curious to see what the defense says on how he performed today, but very athletic kid. He's a good 280, 290-pound kid. So we've got some size now up front, and. Savion is running around and he's getting back to being healthy. So once we kind of get him back in the mix, we're starting to create some pretty good depth here at this university right now. So, but over the next, really 5 weeks, we've got 14 more practices left, and what we're going to do from a media standpoint is we're going to get a lot of these kids in front of you guys, all right, so they can talk and player develop and I encourage you guys to ask them pretty difficult questions and see how they handle it. So you're probably going to get around 60 players over the course of the next 5 weeks.
Awesome.
But yeah, open up for questions.
Did I hear you correctly that you have an offensive lineman that needs to lose weight? Usually don't hear that around here. Usually it's add weight.
Yeah, no, we have a couple guys, and that's like, it's also like every kid's different. So you have to see what they play at, what they're comfortable at. You have to prevent injuries as well. The wear and tear and the pounding on the ground when you're probably 30 pounds overweight, it's not the most healthy thing for your knees or anything of that nature. So we just take precautions of it all, and we talk with the kid, and we just kind of experiment through it. Hey, let's get you down to this certain weight and see how you feel. And you do that with everybody. That's offensive line and defensive line driven more than anything, but it's also with receiver play. I remember Mike Evans was 245 pounds when he played at Texas A&M, and we got him down to 225, and he ran a 4.4, 4.3 at the combine. But there's science and strategy behind the whole deal, just to make sure that we're putting these kids in the best spots. But yeah, he was like 40 pounds overweight.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the linebacker core.
Mm-hmm.
You lost some, and what does that look like right now going into spring, and then the depth at linebacker position?
Yeah, it's we're moving around a lot of different bodies right now, kind of experimenting with some stuff. I forgot about DeMarquise Hayes, by the way. That was the other kid that I forgot about, who's outside rush linebacker. You start with that kind of rush position where they can drop out in coverage, or they're just going to be really a pass, a pass threat, for a pass rushing threat. And DeMarquise, he brings some flashes out there, which is going to be good. So you got like Devin Martinez and London Harris and DeMarquise Hayes over there, and then we're throwing Isaiah Nixon over there right now too, and John Emanuel. Just to, we're going to move our guys around a lot, but like that rush position, I feels like pretty good, because like I think those guys are athletic enough to go and rush the quarterback. When you kind of look in the inside of it, it's going to be kind of a mixture of a lot of different guys with Braden Stringer and Sione, and then Kenny Haynes and Markavian Coleman. Like, those are 4 guys. Like, Binky's played a lot of ball here, and Stringer's played a ton of ball, and so has Sione. Kenny's going to be a guy that we got thrown in the fire, and then you also got Josh Emanuel as well, who those are 2 young kids. Josh played a lot last year for us. Kenny played in special teams roles. Really want to see those 2 elevate their play, because I think they're going to be pretty special players. But our depth is pretty good right now, and we're still bringing in more guys. Like, we have 15 available scholarships right now, which probably makes us the most in the country, because we're in no rush to really sign guys right now, just based off of how recruiting's going and where it's at. And we've had a lot of people with interest, a lot of linebackers that have reached out, if we're curious in taking them, and we're just kind of sorting that whole process out. But we're going to probably bring in another two linebackers, which that it's going to be pretty healthy. Now I'm always encouraging bringing in those type of bodies because of special teams, and you got to get those body types out there. So it's going to be good to add a couple more guys after spring. But pleased with those guys right now with that group. I don't know who else I'm missing at the linebacker spot.
Christian Taylor, maybe?
So CT's gone. He graduated. Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm about right on that. But yeah, it's for a first day and no pads. You know, I thought it was a pretty competitive period for the first time. You know, and that means both sides are doing right things.
Coach, how much nicer is it to, move people around because you want to and stuff instead of having to like you had to last season?
It's a great
How much
feeling.
does that help you and those guys know that, they can
It also, yeah, it helps the kids out more than anything. You know, it's hard to just move kids from position to position. You know, like if you're a Mike linebacker or a Sam linebacker or a rush, the Sam's going to play more in space, the Mike's going to play in the box, and the rush is going to be on the edge. And if you start mixing those guys throughout the course of the game, they'll get confused with it, on their assignments and their responsibilities, because there's so many moving parts to it. But that's why you want to try to keep the continuity at O-line the same. Like, last year, if we had an injury, we're going to have to move like 3 people around. Now, if you get an injury, we can just plug the backup in and we should be good to go, and yeah, that's comforting. It's finally to a point where we got some solid depth here, and we're going to keep building and keep adding guys in. So, you think about it, we still got 15 guys to bring in, which makes it pretty fun and exciting for everybody.
You would say it last year that you could tell the level of talent against the teams you're going up against. They were just bigger, faster, specifically BYU, you pointed that out. Do you feel like you all are getting closer to being comparable to teams of that stature?
Yeah, we're getting there. Like I'm saying, we've made strides. Like with the D-line bringing in those big bodies, that's going to help. The offensive line's looking really good. Our tight ends look great right now. But we still got to get longer at our DB position and our linebacker position, and we got to get a little bit more depth at the slot receiver position as well. Because I feel confident with Barbie and Javen Banks and TJ Graham out there. And, we just got to find some guys in the mix, which you got Drew Jackson and Chandler Spites and Dylan Jansen. You got a pretty good little mix of guys in there, but we still got to increase the length of our skill guys in my mind, but we're getting a lot better. It's the biggest team that we've had since I've been here, so, that means we're improving the profile.
Coach, almost a year ago exactly, spring practice got shut down. So how important is this spring period going to be for you guys, considering that last year got cut off?
Yeah, it's that's a big deal for us. Last year I just wanted to play. Like that was the whole point. Last year didn't count from an eligibility standpoint, so we got a lot of valuable experience last year. But you miss out on a lot of different things. You miss out on like your culture talks and group settings and team bonding and building and like we had to bring in we had like 33 seniors I think that the first year I was here. You lose that, you bring in really 60 new guys on the roster, and then a pandemic hits and you can't even really talk with them in a group setting. So it's kind of like you're walking out in the SMU game and they're kind of like introducing themselves for the first time. You'd love for them to be around more, and we've taken that approach moving into this spring. Obviously we're going to play football. You got your 15 practices, and we're going to continue to become the best, football team from that standpoint, from playing the game. But there's also these culture talks that come into play, and our team pillars and kind of the buzzwords and the keys to victory, and that we can sit here and discuss it. And we've James Sherman, our director of player development, does a really good job at doing, community service stuff, and you guys seen us do the home run derby, and you saw us do the putt, and eventually we're going to play paintball, and we're going to do all this stuff. We're doing a lot of things that you should do as a team, and that's what we lacked and missed last year due to the pandemic, because I don't know if you guys remember, we were doing our team meetings on the turf in front of the jumbotron. It's now you can get them in a setting and kind of discuss it. And, we're COVID testing twice a week right now. We tested yesterday and all negative, and so they keep abiding by the COVID principles, and let's just hope nothing extreme happens and we can keep building off of what we're doing right now.